So UTME score determines whether you gain admission or not. And for those that are applying for a medical course, biology is an important subject that they can leverage on to get a high UTME score. In this video, I'll be sharing with you important biology topics that you must know before going for your UTME. Hi, my name is Pelumi, also known as Kenst, a fifth-year medical student of the University of Ibadan. I post educational content, set-domain content around medical school and student lifestyle. So if you're up for any of this, kindly hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you'll be notified every single time I post new content. So without further ado, let's get into the video. The first topic you must know is taxonomy. And taxonomy is basically the classification of living organisms into the kingdoms, the phylums, the class, the order, and the family. And when you are studying this particular topic, what you should take note of are the major characteristics of each of those kingdoms, the classes, the phylums, and how you can differentiate each kingdoms from one another, each phylums from one another, and each class from one another. For example, now we have 5 major kingdoms. You have kingdom Monera, kingdom Protista, kingdom Fungi, kingdom Animalia, and kingdom Plantae. Some of these kingdoms share similar characteristics with one another. For example, there was a point that they thought fungi are plants because they also have cell wall, but then their cell wall is just different from that of plants. Their cell wall has chitin, while that of plant has cellulose. So those major differences, you have to take note of them as well. And so another example of a question that you may be asked under taxonomy is also which of the following characteristics does not belong to Kingdom Monera? And then they will give you a list of options that are characteristics of Kingdom Monera, and then they give you one that is not. Now, the only way you'll be able to answer that question is if you are able to, if you know all the characteristics or all the major characteristics of Monera, and then you can just do elimination method, pick those out, and then you know that the other one out to be your answer for that question. So those are the things you need to know for taxonomy. You need to know the characteristics of each kingdoms, each phylums, each class, and how to differentiate between each one of them. Now, in this video, it's looking like maybe taxonomy is a very short topic, but then when you actually sit down to actually study it, it's actually very, very broad. But then a very good way for you to study this is for you to just jot it out, the major characteristics, and probably try to find similarity between them. What's called using a diagram, basically using a diagrammatic representation. It tends to like stick better that way. And you should also know examples of organisms, 2 examples of organism or 2 unique organisms peculiar to each kingdoms, to each phylums, to each class. So that way, another way they can ask you a question is asking you, oh, which of these characteristics belong to which of these organisms? And then they will not give you the kingdom, they will just give you the organisms. So you'll be able to rule it out and figure out your answer that way. Now, the next topic now is systems. Now, it may look quite just system, but then it's actually very broad because you have a lot of systems in living organisms. And most of these systems perform certain function. So their systems are always named after the function that they perform. For example, you have respiratory system, so they perform respiration. We have transport system, the transport of materials within the organism. We have nervous system and endocrine system for coordination. We have quite a number of systems. So now the way you do it is for each system, you have the system perform a function. So there is that function in animals, that function in plants. So which organ or which system, which organ perform that particular function in plants, which organ perform that function in animals. So let's start with transport system. Now for transport system now, we have transport system for plants, we have transport system for animals. Now for plants, it's quite straightforward. You have phloem and then you have xylem. Now, one of them transports water, the other one transports the material synthesized by the organism. So I want you to drop it down in the comment section. Which one of them transports water? Which one of them transports the substance produced by the organism? And then from there, now you have one. One of them is also bidirectional. The other one is unidirectional. So you need to know all those as well. So that's for transport system in animals. And also you need to know there are different arrangements in monocotyledonous plants and dicotyledonous plants. So you have to know the different pattern, the arrangement in the stem, the roots. So now with that out of the way, now you have transport system in animals. Now for transport system in animals, this is where you should actually study it. So you have open and closed circulation. Now open means that what there is no structure. It's not within an enclosed structure. The material that is being transported is not within an enclosed structure. Why closed is that the material that is being transported is within the enclosed structure like the blood vessels, veins, arteries, capillaries. So now with that out of the way, now open and closed. Now you have to know the kingdom, the organisms that actually use open circulation and closed circulation. Then from there, you go further to closed circulation. Under closed circulation, you have single and then you have double circulation. Now single circulation is like what the circulatory fluid passes through the heart once, while for double it passes through the heart twice. Now for double circulation now, we break it further down. For double circulation, then you now have systemic and then you have what pulmonary circulation. For systemic, the blood flows or the liquid flows throughout the entire body except what the lungs. While for pulmonary, it passes through the lungs. It does not pass through the other parts. So that's that. So now after that, now you now have to know the primary circulatory organs in major or in specific or in unique organisms. Now, for example, the hearts of toads, of amphibians are quite unique. The hearts of um, reptiles are also quite unique. So you need to know the differences, the uniqueness of each of those, of their hearts and then their circulation. There is one that the blood mix, I think it's an amphibian. So you need to know all those. And so that's that for the circulatory system. Those are the things that you really need to know for the circulatory system. Now, which is the transport system. Let's now move from transport system now. Let's now go to digestive system. Now, under digestive system, that's where you have nutrition. Now, let's start with from nutrition because it is very good for you to have most of these things structured. So this video will probably serve as a form of revision as well. So let's start with nutrition. Now, you have two types of nutrition. You have the autotrophic and then you have the heterotrophic. Now, under the heterotrophic, you have um phototrophic and chemotrophic. Phototrophic is basically used by major green plants, while chemotrophic is used by some plants that digest other organisms and all. So you have autotrophic and chemotrophic. Now under heterotrophic now you have the normal holozoic and the other ones that, that are majorly peculiar to animals. So with said, with that out of the way, so now you can now go further to talk about the to or to try to revise or to study whichever one you will be doing. The for plants now, the elements that are very important to for the plant growth, like zinc, copper, and their deficiencies as well too. So if they are absent, what will it cause? Now, if they are present, what is their function? So you need to know the deficiency and the importance of those unique elements. So now, there are certain tests that they do. The textbook usually show that they do that are very peculiar. So you have to know some of those as well too. And then with that out of the way, with that of plants out of the way now. Now you now move to that of animals. So you have to talk about where the digestion of certain kinds of food starts. Like where does the digestion of carbohydrates starts? You have to know all those. Where does the digestion of protein starts? That of fat or lipid starts. So you have to know all those. Now with that, you also have to know the enzymes. In looking at the enzymes within the digestive system, the enzymes that actually break those food types of food down. And also you have to know the dentition as well too. There are some unique dentition that you have to know. So you have to know the dentition for herbivores, for carnivores, and for omnivores. And there are some organisms, there are some animals that used to represent each of these herbivores, omnivores, and carnivores. So for carnivores, they use dogs. So you have to know the dentition of a dog. For herbivores, you have to know the dentition of either a goat or a sheep. And then for omnivores, the one they usually use is that of man. It's like that of man. So that's out of the way for a digestive system. And you also have to note the tests that are usually conducted, food tests that are usually conducted to test for food. like that of protein, the carbohydrates, and lipids. So you have to know some of those tests too, and then the likely results that you get. And then there are some minerals that are also important for normal human growth. So you have to know their deficiency and their importance as well too. The same thing for vitamins. You have to know their deficiency and then their importance. So that's that for digestive system. And let's now move to respiratory system. So the respiratory system in plants, there's also the respiratory system in animals. For respiratory system in plants, you have the stoma, which is on the leaves, and then you have the lenticels, which are usually which is on the stem. So those are the respiratory organ in plants. Now you have to know the respiratory organs in insects, in annelids, and you should also know the types of respiration that we have, which is aerobic and anaerobic. The different types of anaerobic respiration, which are also important. And so I also that you need to know the respiratory organ in each organ in major organisms, like in annelids, in insects, in mammals. We already talk about that of plants. Then you now go ahead to now there's also this part about the importance of oxygen in plants as well too. So you need to read a bit of those parts. And then you now go to respiratory organ in man, which is where they use the lungs. So you have to know about the trachea, the bronchi, the bronchioles, and then the alveolar sacs. You have to know about all those. So now from the respiratory system, now you can now go to the excretory system. Now you have to know the excretory system in plants and in animals. Now the excretory organs in plants are more like still the stomata, and then lenticels. While the excretory organs in different organisms are quite different. So you have the Malpighian tubule, you have the nephridium. Nephridium is for annelids, Malpighian tubule is for insects. Then you have the lungs, skin, the kidneys for man. So you have to know, and you have to know the mechanism by which some of those organs in man, in mammals, actually function. And then in some what's called in some of these other organisms, so like in insects and annelids. Now you need to know the excretory products in plants also, like the gums. There are some of these excretory products that are very important in plants. Yes, like mucilage, resin, alkaloids, and the rest. So you need to know some of this as well. Now, with that out of the way, then you need to talk about the support and movement systems. In plants, you have the xylem, you have the phloem, you have some other components as well too. So like the parenchyma, the sclerenchyma, and some other stuff. So you have to know each one of them and then the function that this you have to know the specific function that they perform as well. So that's all for support system in plants. And for support system in animals, we have the skeletons. Can either be exoskeleton or endoskeleton. And for the you need to know the organisms that make use of exoskeleton, like the arthropods. You need to know organisms that make use of endoskeleton, which are like the normal mammals. Now you need to know now you need to know the entire bones in the body, like the axial skeleton and the appendicular skeleton. And you need to know unique features of the atlas, the axis, the cervical vertebrae, the thoracic vertebrae, and all those as well. So that's all for support system in, in both plants and animals. Now we now have movement. So in plants, we have around 3 or 4 movements. You have the tropic, you have the tactic, you have the nastic, and then you have the sleeping movement also. Now, you need to know for whether a positive phototropic, negative phototropic, positive geotropic. You need to know all those as well too. And those are for movements in animals, in plants. Now, they hardly you don't really ask much about movements in animals, so just skip that. So now moving on to the next system. So the next system is reproductive system. Now, for reproductive system, you have reproductive system in plants, you have reproductive system in animals. Now, the reproductive system in plants are very quite complex. That's where you have your reproductive organs like the anther, the filament, and all that. So you need to know the female reproductive system in plants, the male reproductive system in plants, and you need to know the fertilization process in plants, and like all this wind pollination and pollination, man to plant pollination or something, wind pollination and all that kind of stuff. You need to know all those as well, and you need to know fruits as well too. Although they don't really ask a lot of questions on this, but then since you're trying to make sure that you have a very high job score, it's only only for you to know most of these things because those are the things that determine whether you have a 100, 90 or less. So fruits, the different types of fruits. Most food that they tend to like ask are usually nuts, this one about maize, mango, then the legumes. These are the ones that they tend to like usually ask. So you also have the asexual reproduction, which is the one that usually exhibited by unicellular organisms like fission, conjugation, budding, natural vegetative propagation, artificial propagation. And then you also have fertilization and development. Now, development in plants, they hardly ask those, but it won't take you, it won't, they hardly ask those. So it's not really, if you decide to skip this part, if you decide to skip this area, you won't really be at a loss, but then it's always best for you, if you are trying to aim very high score, for you to try as much to make sure you cover the entire topic, the entire sort of syllabus. But then with lesser time, you need to focus on the most important ones, which is why I'm making this video. And the next part under this introduction, you have growth, where you talk about the way plant growth and growth in humans as well too. And there are some unilateral or something. There are a lot of complex, but the hardly ask, but then it's also it won't be bad for you to actually know it. Now the next now the next system now is nervous and endocrine. Now I'm saying nervous and endocrine because both of them are more like quite similar because both of them are concerned with coordination and control. So for the nervous system, you need to know the central nervous system. For animals, you need to know the central nervous system and the central nervous system. You need to know the central nervous system and peripheral nervous system. Now for the peripheral nervous system, you have the somatic and the autonomic nervous system. Then then from there, then you go to endocrine system, and you also need to note the organs in the body that they are both exocrine and endocrine system together. Endocrine system are basically endocrine organs are basically the organs that the secretion that they release, they tend to send it to the blood circulation. They don't deliver it directly to the site of action. So you need to know the all these endocrine organs and the hormones that they produce and the function of those hormones that they produce. And then the deficiency, if there's any problem with secretion of that hormone, what will be the effect? What will be the thing that you see? Now, another nervous system too, you have the sensory organs, which is the eye, the nose. So now that's that for systems. Now we're going to talk about then the next topic that you should make sure that you focus on is also ecology. Now, most people tend to like have problem with like understanding ecology. So the important aspect that you should focus on in ecology includes the habitats, different type of habitats like terrestrial habitats, aquatic habitats, and I think there's arboreal. Arboreal is part of terrestrial. So you have aquatic, and then you have terrestrial, aquatic terrestrial, and then you have different. Then you have mountain forest. You need to know, and you need to know the areas that these habitats are usually found. These areas are usually found in Nigeria now. I think there are like five or so five or known local biomes or so, like the Sudan Savannah and all these states. You need to know you need to know that local biomes and then the states that you can find that particular local biomes. Also, you need to know carbon cycle, water cycle, nitrogen cycle as well. So it's part of ecology. And also you need to know factors affecting distribution of organisms across all these habitats. So now that with that ecology, also one thing you need to know about ecology is also the population density, competition, intercompetition, and all those other terms. You need to know this. When the most important are just the local biomes, the state that you can find those local biomes, the the natural habitats and the characteristics of those natural habitats as well. So those are the most important ones. Now, after from ecology, now you can now then go ahead to study hereditary and evolution. Now, under hereditary and evolution, you need to know all this stuff about sex-linked characters, Lamarck theory, Darwin's theory, continuous and discontinuous variations, and what actually usually causes variations itself. So, how that affect variation that causes variation is usually crossing over, and then you have independent assortment. So you need to know all those. And also you need to know morphological variations and physiological variations as well. And you need to know how to do gene crossing, like where you have capital letter TT and small letter TT, the crossing, you need to know it. So you need to know the ratio of the phenotypic ratio and the genotypic ratio when you are asked to do it. So those are the topics that you must know before going for your exam. And also to add a disclaimer, I'm not saying that you should not, if you have enough time to go over the entire syllabus, please do so. That will greatly increase your chance of getting a very high score. But then if you cannot, make sure you prioritize this topic before you go into the exam. I hope you find this helpful. If you do, kindly hit the like button and share with your friends. See you guys in my next video.